श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
Asmad-Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. Today we're continuing on with our discussion of Sri Vacana Bhusanam from Sutra number 71.
Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha, Srimad Anantaya Maha Gurave Namaha, Srimad Varavara Muneye Namaha, Pullalokacharya Thiruvadigale Sharanam. Sri Vacana Bhusanam, Sutram number 71. Coming up to this point, it was shown that the Chetana thinks of Perumal as the Siddhopayam. That is, he is the means and the goal. And through this it was shown that it is he who gains the Chetana. Also, it is Perumal himself who causes that gain to happen. And it is he who enjoys that gain as well in the end. But there is a question here. The Chetana has knowledge as one of his qualities. Therefore, he is qualified to perform acts and experience the results of those acts. So, should he not have the quality of attempting something, that is performing the means to gain something, and then enjoying its result? How can both of these be removed from the Jivatma? Pullalokacharya answers that question in this Sutram. Sutram number 71. Swa-yatna nivritti paratantriya palam, swa-prayojana nivritti seshatva palam. He points to two things here. Swa-yatna nivritti, that is removal of self-effort, and swa-prayojana nivritti, removal of the result for the self. How is the self-effort removed? He says Swa-yatna nivritti paratantriya palam is the result of paratantriya. Even though the Jivatma possesses knowledge and has the ability to perform acts, the removal of self-effort in reaching him, that is Perumal, is due to the nature of being a paratantra to the Lord. That is, the soul is completely dependent on Perumal, and that is his true nature. And this removes the self-effort. Swaprayojana nivritti is removed due to the quality of Seshatva. Making Perumal as the enjoyer and removing self-enjoyment or enjoying the results of the effort comes out of the quality of Seshatva, which is doing service exclusively for his enjoyment only. So this cannot directly result in the enjoyment for the Chetana. Since Paratantriyam and Seshatvam are the natural qualities of the soul, realization of that nature will automatically result in the removal of self-effort and self-enjoyment. And that is what is mentioned in this sutra. But if the Chetana is detached from any effort from his side and its result, then what is the purpose of his ability to act and his knowledge? What are these qualities for? In the next sutra, Pullalokacharya addresses this question. Sutram number 72. Paraprayojana pravritti prayatana palam, tat vishaya priti chaitanya palam. The result of his actions or effort, that is that of the Chetanas, the prayatna palam, is paraprayojana pravritti. There is a purpose for it, that is doing these actions, because they are useful for Perumal, not for the Chetana himself. The Chetana is not free of actions. This is shown through Lakshmana's statement when he says, Aham sarvam karishyami, to Rama and Sita when they were going to the forest, where he told them that he will do all kinds of service to them. Nammalvar 2 says, Vadila adimai seiya vendum in Thiruvaimozhi. That is, we have to do that blemishless service to Perumal. Andal says, Unakke namat seivom in Tirupavai. But these actions are done entirely as service to him and are useful only to him. They are not meant for the Chetana himself. So the purpose of all these actions of the Chetana are as service for Perumal and are useful to him only. The result of his knowledge, Chaitanya Palam, is Tat Vishaya Preeti. Alavandar says in Stotraratnam, Nitya Kinkaraha Prahashya Ishyami. That is, as long as the soul is there, which is that it is there forever, he says, I will do service to you for your enjoyment only. Seeing that enjoyment of Perumal, the Chetana gains happiness. So his happiness is based on the Ishvara's pleasure only. Thus the result of his knowledge is the happiness that comes out of the joy that Perumal gains by his service. This is what Kulasekara Alvar also said in Perumal Tirumozhi when he says, Padiyai kidandu un pavalavai kanbeni. Padiyai kidandu is being of use to Perumal. Pavalavai says that Perumal has a smile or is expressing his happiness seeing the service of Alvar. Kanbeni. Alvar then gains happiness on seeing the smile on Perumal's face. Thus the purpose of the Chetana's efforts and knowledge are shown to be matching to the qualities of Paratantriyam and Seshatvam shown in the previous sutra. So we have seen that Paratantriyam and Seshatvam are the dharmas of the soul, but the soul also has dharmas of Kartrutvam and Nyatrutvam. Yet the first two are made important and the next two are used to qualify the first two. Why is that? In Sutram number 73, Pidalokacharya says, Aham arthattukku jnana anandangal tatastham ennumbadi dasyamire antaranka nirubakam. Aham artham. That is, the soul knowing itself thinks I and says I. And this arises out of the qualities of jnana anandangal, the nature of having knowledge and enjoyment. Bhagavatam says, Jnana Ananda Mayastvatma. That is, the Atma has knowledge and joy as its form. Another Pramanam says, Swarupam Anumatram Syat Jnana Ananda Eka Lakshanam. That is, the Atma is atomic in size and it is defined by the qualities of knowledge and pleasure. So it is through these qualities that the soul is defined. But these qualities of Jnanam and Anandam, which is knowledge and joy, these are both external. Pidalokacharya says, like the petals to a flower, Tatastham ennumbadi. Because the Atma is known as Atma Pushpam. It is like a flower, and the qualities of Jnanam and Anandam are like petals to it. Whereas the quality of Seshatvam, which is Dasyam, is the interior or the essential part. Antarangam. Dasyamire Antarangam. The soul is the body of Perumal, so Seshatvam is what defines the soul. So it has to be used first to determine the Atma, and then this quality is used to determine other qualities such as Jnana and Ananda. Pidalokacharya also says Nirupakam. What does it mean when he say Nirupakam? Nirupakam is what differentiates one object from another. In this case, the quality of Dasyam or Seshatvam shows the difference of the Chit, which is the Atma, from Ishvara, who is Paramatma. Whereas the quality of Jnanam and Anandam show the difference of the Chit from the Achit. Here, if only Jnanam and Anandam are used as qualities to define the Chetana, since they are also the qualities of the Ishvara, we will need to use Seshatvam also to distinguish the Atma. If only Seshatvam is used to show the Chetana, since that is the quality of the Achit also, we have to use Jnanam and Anandam to distinguish the Atma. So, Seshatvam as well as Jnanam and Anandam have to be used to define the Chit. That is its Nirupakam. Thus both Seshatvam and Jnanam Anandam are Nirupakam for the soul and both are required. But the difference is that the Seshatvam is the interior or the Antarangam nature of the Jivatma and Jnanam and Anandam are exterior. This is shown in Tirumantram also. In Tirumantram, Pranavam is the first part which is made of 3 parts. The first part is akaram, but there is a hidden declension to it, the 4th declension, which shows the seshatvam quality of the Atma. The third part of pranavam, which is makaram, shows that the soul has the form of jnana and ananda and has the quality of knowledge. The Narayana Padam that follows in Tirumantram shows that all souls are his body. The details of Tirumantram and all this can be understood by the study of the Grantham, Mumukshapadi and other such Granthams. Harita Smriti also says, Dasabhuta Swataha Sarve Hyatmanaha Paramatmanaha Nanyata Lakshanam Tesham Bande Mokshe Tataivacha. That is, all souls are naturally in servitude to Perumal. That nature of being in his service, that Seshatvam, is there when they are in the bodies, that is in this world, as well as when they are in Paramapadam with Perumal. Nammalvar said, Adiyen Ullan, Udal Ullan in Thiruvaimozhi. The explanation for this was obtained by Kurattalvan after spending 6 months with Thirukkottiur Nambi under the order of Swami Ramanuja. The question of whether Seshatvam is the first Nirupakam for the Atma or Jnana Anandam is the first Nirupakam was there in the mind of Ramanuja, and to get its answer he had sent Kurattalvan to Thirukkottiur Nambi. After 6 months there, when Kurattalvan decided to return to Srirangam, Thirukkottiur Nambi referred Kurattalvan to this verse, Adiyen Ullan, Udal Ullan in Thiruvaimozhi. Here, Nammalvar, when he says the Paramatma is inside him, says Adiyen Ullan, Udal Ullan. He is inside me and is inside my body. So he is showing that the Paramatma is inside the Chit and the Achit. But in defining the Chit, he uses the word Adiyen instead of En. If he had said En Ullan, it would have meant the same thing as saying Adiyen Ullan. But to clarify the true nature of the Jivatma, he uses the word Adiyen, which shows that Seshatvam is the first qualification for the Jivatma. Through all this, it is shown that the interior quality of the Atma is Seshatvam and Jnana Anandam are the exterior qualities. If Seshatvam is the determining quality of the soul, should it not be always the nature of the soul right from the beginning? But it seems to be happening only at a certain point, and it seems to manifest due to a cause at that time. So can we say that it is a quality that is only taken on by the Jivatma at some intermediate time? And Pullalokacharya answers by saying no in Sutram number 74. Iduthan Vanderi Andru. Iduthan, that is this Seshatvam. Vanderi means manifested in the middle. Andru, no, it is not. It is naturally always there. The Pramanam says, Swa Ujjivana Ichcha Yatitesva Sattayam Sprihayati Atma Dasyam Arehe Swamyam Swabhavamcha Satasmarak. That is, if you have the desire for the upliftment of your soul, if you desire the manifestation of the true nature of your soul, always think of this servitude of the soul, the lordship of Hari, Sriman Narayana, and know that these are always there. Periyar too said, Thirumale Nanamunakku Paravadiyen. That is, the nature of me being Adiyen to you, or being a Dasa to you, or having the quality of Seshatvam, is eternal, Para Adiyen. Therefore, this quality is there from the beginning, and it is not gained in between, says Pullalokacharya. Alvar Embiravanar Jiyat Relationam Adiyen Madhura Kavidasan.
So he's using quite a lot of technical jargon or terminology there. I hope everybody understands all that terminology. But in case you have any questions about 71 to 74, which were the sutras we just covered, you can go ahead and ask now. Otherwise, we can go on.
So the soul is of the nature of knowledge and
Bliss.
joy, huh? Ananda,
Yes.
bliss.
Chit and
knowledge
Ananda.
bliss.
Yes.
Chit and Ananda, yeah. But not Sat.
Yes, Sad also.
Also,
It's eternal. Yes,
Sat
of
Chit
course.
Ananda, yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Eternal. Sat is eternal, huh? Yeah.
Right, but the point being made in how do you distinguish the soul from ordinary matter? Because matter is also eternal in a sense,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and also matter is also but matter doesn't have chit and doesn't have ananda.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
knowledge and it doesn't have bliss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insentient matter.
Yeah.
And also,
Okay. Yeah.
although the Lord controls and owns everything, including matter, it's still the sheshatvam, or sheshatvam means the attribute of being a servant, the attribute of serving another,
Mm.
right? Is there only in the
The
sentience, in
soul,
the
huh?
chit, yeah, the sentience,
Yeah.
yeah, the soul, the jivatman.
Yeah. It was nice, the analogy with the flower, huh? The petals they symbolize chit and ananda, and the servitude is the interior of the flower. Huh?
Right, and we can,
Yeah.
if we look at Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we can see that they say, Jiver Swarup Hoy, Nitya
Right.
Krishna Das.
Yeah.
So what they're emphasizing there, same thing. What they're emphasizing
Yeah.
there is they're emphasizing that the Swarup of the Jiva is to be, or the real nature, his own nature, the real nature of the Jiva is the servant of God.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But Chit and Ananda are also there. There's one Swami of Tripurari's group who's having a discussion with me right now about this, and he's contending that some things are not there in the soul. And anyway, I'm having a discussion with him. Let's see how it goes. But he has some ideas that Bhakti comes from outside, and I'm not exactly sure why he thinks like this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter for us. It's not important. So
No. Okay.
okay. So then the first two sutras, 71 and 72, are about paratantriya. Paratantriya means how the Lord is, how everybody is dependent upon the Lord, and He's not dependent upon anybody. And the other, and then the other two, Sutra 73 and 74, about the attributes of the jiva, the attributes of the jivatman being dasatvam, or sheshatvam, servitude, and that this is natural and inherent, and it's not imposed from outside. And although the last point he was making was, somebody must say, well, if you say that I'm inherently a servant of the Lord, but only when I came to know that I'm a servant of the Lord did I start serving the Lord. Now I'm not, there are many people in this world not serving the Lord. So how can you say that service to the Lord is inherent? We're always serving somebody in this world. So service is inherent, like that. And just to say that we don't realize that service that we do is actually service to the Lord, that's just our realization. We don't realize that. But we're always serving. Okay, so we'll continue on.
Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha, Srimad Anantarya Mahagurave Namaha, Srimad Varavaramunaye Namaha, Pulladokacharya Tiruvadigalai Sharanam. Previously, in Sri Vacana Bhusanam, Pulladokacharya has shown that even though the Chetana has knowledge and the ability to act, his self-effort and the result being for his own self, both are removed from him through the quality of Paratantriyam, which is complete dependence on the Lord, and Seshatvam, which is servitude to Perumal. And that the purpose of his actions are to be of use to Perumal. And the purpose of his knowledge is to create joy in him. This is because Seshatvam is the interior attribute of the soul, and Jnanam and Anandam and other such qualities are external attributes. Finally, it was shown that Seshatvam is a quality that is always there with the Chetana and not manifested or gained in between. Okay, so we know now that Seshatvam is eternal and not obtained in between. That is, it is not Vanderi. But are there any qualities or attributes that are acquired in between? This is answered in the next sutram, sutram number 75. Swatantriyamum Anya Seshattvamum Vanderi. That is, there are two qualities that are shown to be acquired in between. One is Swatantriyam and the second is Anya Seshatvam. Swatantriyam is the quality of independence. That is the soul thinking that I belong to myself. Anya Seshatvam is the quality of having servitude to other things or other beings other than Perumal. Anya is anything but him, and Anya Seshatvam is servitude to anything but him. These two attributes are Vanderi. They are acquired because they are not natural attributes of the Jivatma, and they come to him out of his ignorance and other such influences and behaviors. Therefore, they are acquired in between. These two qualities that are acquired in between, what are they in opposition to? That is answered in the next sutram, sutram number 76. Seshatva Virodhi Swatantriyam Tat Seshatva Virodhi Tat Idara Seshatva. That is, Swatantriyam or independence is antagonistic to Seshatvam. Seshatvam is being in service, and independence keeps us out of being in service. Anya Seshatvam is antagonistic to Tat Seshatvam. That is, being in his service and only in his service. That is, we end up doing service to other things. This quality makes us do service to other things. Swatantriyam makes the Chetana say, I belong to myself, which means he cannot be in servitude to anybody else. That is, this acquired attribute will oppose the natural attribute of Seshatvam. Tad idara Seshatvam. When the Chetana agrees not to be a Swatantra, he has a choice. He can go into service to Perumal, or he can go into service to other things. So instead of Perumal, when he starts doing service to someone or something else, it will oppose the exclusive Seshatvam to Perumal, which is known as Tat Seshatvam. This Idara Seshatvam, which is doing service to other things, is the Virodhi to the Tat Seshatvam. That is, doing service to the one true Lord, who the recipient of all service, is Tat Seshatvam, and the Idara Seshatvam is opposed to it. Next, Pillalokacharya shows what occurs when these incorrect acquired qualities are removed from us. Sutra number 77. Ahankaram ஆகிற ஆர்ப்பை தொடைத்தால் ஆத்மாவுக்கு அழியாத பேர் அடியான் என்றே. The base feeling or the idea of ahankaram or having ego leads us to thinking that the body is the soul and that the soul belongs to itself. This later is known as the Swatantriyam, and it is taken as the dirty or the incorrect quality. Ahankaram ஆகிற ஆர்ப்பு. Arpu is a base quality or its dirt. When it is removed, Tudaithal, and that happens with the help of an Acharya and his Upadesa. And the Acharya removes this base thought, this ego, completely, leaving no trace and no attachment or remembrance of it. Similar to Tirupanalvar saying, Paramaya Paravinai Patrarit. When that happens, the result is that the soul knows itself only by the name Adiyan. That is, only the attribute of Seshatvam, that alone remains. This is what is shown in Harita Smriti as Dasa Bhutas Swataha. Another Pramanam says Atma Dasyam. Therefore, it is shown that the attributes of Swatantriyam and Anya Seshatvam are acquired by external causes, while the attribute of Seshatvam is natural to the Chetana. But don't we see that the Jivatmas are given names by their place, by their clan, etc.? Pilalokacharya answers in the next sutram, sutra number 78. Grama Kuladigadal Varumpir Anartha Hetu. The names that we acquire through our place of birth, the clan into which we are born, etc., will cause ego, and that will destroy the true nature of the soul. Anartha Hetu. It is the means to the anartham, which is disaster. Having such names will only lead to disaster because they work counter to Seshatvam, which leads us to the name Adiyan. A pramanam for this is shown next from Pancharatram. Sutram number 79. Ekanti Vyapadeshtabhyaha. This is from the Vishwaksena Samhita Shlokam. Ekanti Vyapadeshtabhyo Naiva Grama Kuladibihi Vishtuna Vyapadeshtabhyaha Tasya Sarvamsa Evahi. In Ekanti, a prapanna is not known by his village, grama, or clan, kula. He is known only by his relationship with the Lord, Bhagavat Sambandham. To such a Chetana, his village, his tribe, his family, everything is Perumal only. We can think of Chinni Ammal's Vartai to Punnadikalji here. The same is said in Yanasaram by Arulala Perumal Embiramanar when he says, Kudiyum Kulamum Yallam Koganagi Kelman. Thus, in this Prakaranam, the Upaya Prakaranam so far, it was shown that Prapatti had no conditions of place, time, etc. And the only condition is who it is done to. Then the greatness of the Archavataram where Prapatti is done is shown. The three types of Prapannas, the nature of Prapatti, the mistake we make if we look at it as a means, and that only he is the means was also shown. Then it was shown that he is the means, he is the goal, and he is the one who enjoys that. Next, the purpose of the Chetana's knowledge and effort, why Seshatvam is important, how it is the interior attribute, that it is natural, the attributes that are opposed to it, and when the ego is removed, the soul's natural state is being in servitude to Perumal was shown. And finally, that the Chetana is known only by his relationship with the Lord and not by anything else was shown, and the Upaya Prakaranam was concluded. Alvar Embiravanar Jiyar Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Pilalokacharya Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Jiyar Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Adiyen Madhura Kavidasam.
That was Sutra 75 to 79. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question about this prayer at the end. He is praying to Pilalokacharya and Vaisnava Dharma, and then he's mentioning somebody like Jir.
Jir means Manavala Mamuni.
Okay, that's
he's saying Pilalokacharya Sharanam. He's saying Emberamana. Emberamana means Ramanuja.
Okay. Yeah.
There's two words in Tamil. There's Emberaman. It's all Tamil. Emberamanar means Ramanuja. Emberaman means Vishnu, means Lord Sriman Narayana. So if I say Emberaman, I'm talking about Perumal. I'm talking about Lord Vishnu, Lord Sriman Narayana. But if I'm talking about Emberamanar, I'm talking about Ramanuja. If I'm saying, if I say Sharanam, it means take shelter. I take shelter of that person. So if I say Emberaman Sharanam, it means I'm taking shelter of God. Emberamana Sharanam, it means I take shelter of Ramanuja. If I say Pilalokacharya or Lokacharya Sharanam, it means I take shelter of Pilalokacharya. If I say Jir, the word Jir is a common word that means the head sannyasi of a mutt, usually sannyasi, the head of a mutt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a Jir Swami, usually we call them Jir Swamis. So Manavala Mamuni was a sannyasi, Pilalokacharya was a brahmachari. Ramanuja also was a sannyasi. There are many sannyasis. There are also brahmacharis. There are also grihastas in the Guru Parampara. So why it's just a colloquial thing that Sri Vaishnavas, if they say Jir, especially Tengalais, if they say Jir, they're really referring to Manavala Mahamuni.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so there are many
Yeah.
Jirs. Like even one person is called non-Jir,
Mm.
right? Right.
Yes.
Parasara Bhatta had the next guru after Parasara Bhatta is called non-Jir. Non-Jir means my sannyasi.
Mm.
Yeah, Jir means sannyasi. So his name was the person's name was Vedanti. He was a Vedantin, or anyway, he was called Vedantin after he surrendered to Bhatta, right? And there's another thing. Bhatta means many things. We hear of this Bhatta, that Bhatta, the other Bhatta, right? Bhatta means like a priest or a qualified person. Bhatta means Bhattacharya. Yeah, so Bhatta. So when people say Sri Vaishnavas say Bhatta, who do they mean? They mean Parasara Bhatta. Now there are other Bhattas too. He had a brother. His brother's name was Vedavyasa Bhatta. But if I say Bhatta, if I just say Bhatta with no qualifier, it means Parasara Bhatta. If I say
Okay.
Jir without a qualifier, it's without an adjective before it, it means Manavala Mahamuni Jir. So he's saying Jir Sharanam, Bhatta Sharanam. Another one, for example, Alwar. He says Alwar. Often he's talking and he says Alwar says this, Alwar says that. What he means is Nam Alwar says this.
Yeah, right.
Nam Alwar
Yeah.
says that. Okay? If he wants to say that Kulashekar Alwar says it, or if he wants to say Tondaradi Podi Alwar says it, right? Then he'll mention the qualifying
Yeah.
adjective, that person. But if you just
Okay.
say Alwar, you mean Nam Alwar. If you just say Bhatta, you mean Parasara Bhatta. If you just say Jir, you mean Manavala Mahamuni.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Just like even
Clear.
for the Wadagalais, the Southern school, if they say Deshika, now Deshika, the word Deshika means a qualified priest or a qualified person. Deshika in Sanskrit, right? So if somebody doesn't know who they're talking about, and somebody says, "Oh, if you hear the word Deshika in Sanskrit, it just means a qualified person. The person who's the head priest in a ceremony is called the Deshika. He's Deshika." But when Sri Vaishnavas say Deshika, normally they mean Vedanta Deshika, right?
Right.
They mean that person. Right? So
right.
it's colloquial, right? And also the Tamil Adiyan, instead of saying Dasosmi, I'm a servant, I'm your servant, right?
At the end. Yes.
Instead of saying it in Sanskrit, people tend to say it in Tamil because that's the language of most Sri Vaishnavas, or where Sri Vaishnavism originated from.
Yeah.
So you see people, and the important part one important part that was going here is by approaching an acharya and surrendering to God through the acharya and taking pancha samskara, one gets a name, just like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism or any form of Vaishnavism. When somebody takes, this is coming from Pancharatra, and he mentioned that that sloka from Vishwaksena Samhita, Ekanti Vyapadesho Tavyo Naiva Gramam Kula Dibihi Vishnuna Vyapade Desh Tayas Tasya Sarvam Sarvavahi. Right? So he said a real servant of God is not known by his family name or his village name, right? So sometimes we see in South India, there's a lot of people called Krishnadas, or a lot of people called Ramanujadas or Srinivasa, right? So even in Bali, it's like that. There's only 4 names in Bali. You know, if you go to Bali, there's Made. No, the first one is Warren. Anyway, there's 4 names only. You know, and it's the firstborn, the secondborn, the thirdborn, the fourthborn. They have those names, whether they're male or female or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. So in India also, there's many names which are very common. Like somebody's Krishna, somebody's Srinivasa. So there's a million Srinivasas, there's a million Ramanujas, right? You know, who are Sri Vaishnavas. How do you distinguish between them? You distinguish normally because you say, they put a letter, you know, It's like M.R. Sampat Kumar. There's a lot of Sampat Kumars, but there's one M.R. Sampat Kumar. So usually the letters before the name indicate the name of the village where he's from, where his family's from.
Mm. Mm.
So, but actually what they're saying here in the sutra, what Piralokacharya is saying is, that's not important. The important thing is not to be named after a certain village or material situation, right? Or even like myself, some people in Sri Rangam, they don't know who I am, you know, they don't know my name. They just see me. They just see me riding around Sri Rangam on my bicycle. Yeah. So for them, they call me Cycle Mama. Mama means uncle. Mama means uncle in Tamil. So yeah, I hear all the time somebody say, it's like even somebody who doesn't know my name, come here, you know, come over here. They don't know my name. They'll just say, Cycle Mama. Ingeva. Cycle Mama Ingeva. Ingeva means come here. Yeah. So I'm going to say, but it's very common, you know, it's very common. Like in English, we say, hey brother, hey bra, you know,
hey brother,
hey man, come here, you know,
hey man,
yeah, whatever, in the 70s. So we don't know the person's name exactly, but so we call them, you know, something like that. It's very, in Tamil, it's like if they don't know who you are and they're younger than you, they'll say, uncle, come here, auntie, come here. You know, say mama, mummy, my, you know, the lady's mommy, auntie, you know, and come here, like that. And similarly, if I see somebody, you know, some young guy, I'll say, hey, Tambi. Tambi means, hey, boy, do that. Or come here, you know, like in a restaurant, you know, Tambi, waiter, you know.
Yeah, right.
It's like that. So, but the idea is these names have got to do with the body and our relationships and our age difference and everything, and our gender, because Tambi means boy and Tangai means girl and Mami means auntie and Mama means uncle, you know. So these have to do with material distinctions between us. But Adiyen is a common name, or Dasa is a common name. Although in Sanskrit, you know, we attach the name Dasa and Dasi, you know, to a male Vaishnava, female Vaishnava, right? So Dasa and Dasi. But Adiyen in Tamil, it means I'm your servant. It means servant. It's the same as Dasa. The same as Dasa. So a lot of times when Sri Vaishnavas are talking, if they're talking to a very respectful person, they'll put their hand in front of their face, in front of their nose like this, when they're talking. And they'll say, Adiyan, Swami, Adiyan wants to know, you know, if he's asking a question of his guru, he'll say, Adiyan would like to know exactly the meaning of this sutra. Adiyan would like to know about the Sheshatu of the Lord. And they put their hand in front of the mouth so they don't spit, so no spit goes to the person. And they ask this question very humbly, you know, and they'll say, Adiyan wants to know. They won't say, I want to know. They'll never use the word I, Sri Vaishnavas, because they don't want to use the word I, because it involves ego, aham.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Even in the Ramacharma sloka, Lord Rama says, Tavasmi ti shayachite. He says Tavasmi. Tavasmi means just say I am yours. But in Sanskrit, there's two ways of saying I am yours. Tava means yours. Asmi is the word to be. But the word to be in this sense includes inherent within it the I. Yeah. If you want to really say I, you know, if you want to emphasize the I, you say aham, right? Aham tavasmi. I am yours, like that. So they don't say it, just tavasmi, without the I, without the hum. It means I am yours. So in the Pancha Samskara, in the formal initiation ceremony, the formal doing of property in Sri Vaishnavism, like that, there are, according to Pancharatra, and it comes from Pancharatra, there are these 5 things. Tapa Pundra Tato Nama Mantro Yagasya Panchamaha. These are these 5 things. So one of them is tapa, branding the body with the symbols of Vishnu to purify the body. Pundra, also purifying the body by marking the body with the tilak in 12 places, right? Marking it as a temple of Vishnu with names of Vishnu and names of Lakshmi also, right? So tapa pundra to nama. The third thing is nama. The third thing in the ceremony is nama. The acharya will give a name to the shishya, to the disciple, and that name will be something Ramanujadasa, right? Some name of God, or of the goddess, or Mahalakshmi, for a lady, and a direct name of God, not so much like the Gaudiya Sampradaya, where sometimes they'll give some names that don't exactly mean, or they're not primary names of God, but normally in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, primary name of God, primary name of the goddess, and then attached to it Ramanujadasa or Ramanujadasi, yeah. And so therefore at the Samashranam ceremony, the Acharya is saying to you, you are of him. You are a servant of the Lord. And this is the most important thing, is the dasa or dasi at the end. And of course Ramanujadasi, like that. Yeah. So this is why he's making this point here about how the soul has to see himself, and this is an eternal thing, that the Sheshatva, or the servitorship of Perumal of Sriman Narayana, is eternal. We just don't recognize it because we're in ignorance, and so it's part of our essential nature. So these last few sutras, right, actually coming from Sutra 73 to Sutra 70, up to Sutra 77, it was talking about the attributes of the jiva, and then Sutra 78 and 79, talking about the identity of the self. So, you want to go on?
Swami, just want to say
Yes.
something. I don't get the word correctly because I say it very quickly. Is this Tirugadile Sharanam? When they're closing, they're always saying Tiru something something Sharanam.
Tiruvadigale. Tiruvadigale. Tiruvadigale.
Tiruvadigale. Okay, Tiruvadigale. Which
And that's another name of
No.
name of Ramanuja. Eh? Oh.
No. Break it up. Tiru means Shri. So a lot of times everything will be prefixed by Tiru.
Tiru, yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, there's a Nam Alwar appeared underneath a tamarind tree. Nam Alwar sat in meditation under a tamarind tree. So the word tamarind, the word for tamarind in Tamil is puli. Puli means tamarind. Okay? So, and Alwar, if we say Alwar, right? Remember I said Alwar by itself means Nam Alwar, right? So, but Alwar, everything can be an Alwar. There's many, we can, Anand Alwar was not one of the original 12 Alwars. He was a disciple of Ramanuja, but somebody can be called Alwar. It means a person who dives deep into the ocean of devotion, right? So Alwar. Alwar is an honorific. Nambi. There's many Tamil honorifics, okay? Pillai means son. Remember I told you that? Okay. So Alwar, Puli Alwar. So the tamarind tree under which Nam Alwar meditated is also a living being. So it's also considered to be a servant, right, of Nam Alwar, because it shaded Nam Alwar while he was doing meditation. So Sri Vaishnavas refer to that tamarind tree as Tiru Shri, right? To prefix an honorable thing or an honorable person with Shri. So Tiru, Puli, tamarind, Alwar. That tree is an Alwar. It's not one of the 12 Alwars, but that tree is a we consider it to be of service to Namawar. So we call it Tirupuli. So similarly, Tiruvadi, the V is a Tamil Sandhi. Okay, Sandhi, for those of you who understand a little bit Sanskrit, Sandhi means when you have two words that come together. When they come together, when you say them quickly, in order not to make a gap or a breath in between, which we call hiatus, right? There sometimes the ending and the beginning word letters change a little bit in order to make it flow quickly. That's called Sandhi. So Sandhi is a phonetic adjustment of the end of one word and the beginning of another word, right? So for instance, Isha Upanishad. Isha Upanishad. The Upanishad, there are many Upanishads. One of the Upanishad, or the first one, the most important one, is Isha, the Isha Upanishad. So we can say Isha Upanishad, Isha Upanishad. If we say it quickly, Isha Upanishad, Isha Upanishad, it becomes Isha Upanishad. The A and the U, the A ending Isha and the U beginning Upanishad, merge and they become O. So instead of Isha Upanishad, it becomes Isha Upanishad. That's called Sandhi. And there are certain rules in Sanskrit for that. There are rules in Tamil also. So Tiru ends with a U. Adi begins with an A. Ua, 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 wa, wa, wa. Ua. If I end with U and begin with A, it becomes Va. Tiruva. Tiruvadi. Right? So Adi, when you add to Tiru, becomes Tiruvadi. So when people say Tiruvadi, what does Adi mean? In Sanskrit, Adi means beginning with. In Tamil, Adi means the feet. Because where does the person begin? The person begins with the feet. We always look at the feet first, up to the head of the Lord. That's the way we take darshan. So the feet's where we start. Like if we grew out of the ground, or like a tree grows out of the ground. So its roots are the Adi. It's where it starts. Also, we can't say that we start from our head, out of thin air. Okay, we grow up out of the earth, let's say. So Adi means the feet, right? So Tiruvadi means the holy feet. So some people say lotus feet or whatever it is. The holy feet. So Tiruvadi. Now, in Tamil again, Gal or Hal or Kal, because the K and the G and the K and the G and even H are all the same letter in Tamil. Okay, so sometimes it's pronounced, depending on what letters are around it, you say Gal or Hal or Kal, right? So we have Tiruvadi Gal. Tiruvadi Gal. Tiruvadi Gal is plural. Plural. Like Adi would be singular, Adi Gal is plural. So feet or more feet, more than one foot, right? So feet, the holy feet, it means, Tiruvadi Gal. Tiruvadi Gale means is dative, unto the holy feet. Unto the holy feet, plural, right? Tiruvadi Gale, Sharanam. I surrender unto the holy feet. Tiruvadi Gale, Sharanam. Okay? So sorry about the little bit of grammatical.
No, it's nice. I like that.
That's
Yeah, it's
wonderful.
nice.
No, but
Yeah.
just that you get used to it. I mean, you really don't get used to Sri Vaishnava terminology and jargon unless you live with Sri Vaishnavas. If you live with
Yeah,
if you live with
sure.
Sri Vaishnavas, then they're always talking in that way. Even if they're speaking English to you, it's peppered with, it's what they call Tanglish. There's a thing called Tanglish, which
But they will never.
if you go to Tamil Nadu, they say Tamil and English together is Tanglish. Just like they have this English in North India, it's English. The people are speaking English, and every sentence is peppered with they'll throw in Hindi words. Yeah. So like I remember when I lived in Fiji, the people used to speak English. So very very. They've lived in Fiji for a long time, but they're descended from North Indians. So they'll say stuff like practically everything that comes out of their mouth is English. but there'll be a few little Hindi words like that. So they'll say, Swami, Prabhu, light off karo, light on karo. Means turn the light on, turn the light off. Light off karo, light on karo. You know, I mean, karo means to do in Hindi, all right? So like that, when people are in South India also, a lot of times when they, especially when they speak to somebody who doesn't speak full Tamil, they'll put in a few, they'll throw in a lot of Tamil words and a lot of Tamil jargon. So you get used to it when you're, it's like, I mean, very similar, like people in ISKCON and the Gaudiya Math, you know, Westerners, like that. We actually know a lot of Sanskrit or even Bengali because when we talk to each other, we use words, you know. Prabhu, you know, we're going to take prasadam now. Did you like the kirtan? Did you go to kirtan? Have you been, you know, when people who are not familiar with all these technical words, when they hear us, what do you mean, did you take prasadam? Oh, it means did we, you know, eat. What do you mean, did you like the kirtan? Oh, yeah, we went to the music recital of God's names, you know. So bhajan, kirtan, we have all these names, you know, and even sometimes we appropriate those Sanskrit names for the wrong meanings. Like they'll say, I went out on Sankirtan and collected so much money, you know. Sankirtana is the holy, the congregational chanting of the holy names in Sanskrit. So somebody who knows Sanskrit goes, you did Sankirtana and somehow you got money. How is that? And how did you do it alone? Well, because Sankirtana means congregational. So you're saying that you went and you did congregational chanting, and somehow you're equating that with giving people books and getting money or whatever it is. So terms get to mean different things. In the beginning of any discussions, we always try to define terms, you know, because what I mean by love and what you mean by love, or what I mean by God or what you mean by God, may be very, very different. And when we start talking and we think we have our own concepts of words, and we use our own concepts with the other person, and they don't understand, or they misunderstand what we're saying because they have a concept in their mind. So it's very important to define words. Similarly, back here, it's very important to define ourselves in terms of Sheshatva, to define ourselves as servants of God. So when you don't define yourself as a servant of God, if you don't constantly think that you're a servant of God and you're surrendered to God, you're a refugee, you're a slave of God, if you don't cultivate that mentality, then everything you do in life is based on the mentality, the other mentality that you have, which is ahankara, which is the false ego. So that's why it's important when approaching a guru and taking samashrinam and surrendering to God to call ourselves by the right terminology, to call ourselves adiyen, or in Sanskrit, dasa, or dasi. Okay? So, should we go on? Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to say was, so it's Tiruvadi Gale Sharanam. You'll never hear them say Ramanuja Tiruvadi. They'll always say Empuramanar Tiruvadi Gale
Right.
Sharanam,
Well,
right?
Okay. So it is possible to mix Sanskrit and Tamil, because even the book that we're studying, Sri Vacana Bhusanam, is called Manipravala, which I described to you before is a mixture of Sanskrit and Tamil. It's more or less Sanskrit with a few Tamil words thrown in there and Tamil endings, yeah? So Sanskrit and Tamil can be mixed, but when somebody says Embaramanna Tiruvadi Gale Sharanam, instead of saying Ramanuja Tiruvadi Gale Sharanam, it's quite possible to say Ramanuja Tiruvadi Gale Sharanam, but they don't say it because the word Ramanuja, or in Tamil, Ramanusa, right? Because a J in Tamil is the same as an S or a CH, right? There's no actual letter J in pure Tamil, only in Grantha, which is a more ancient script. But that's a whole other discussion. But the point is, and sometimes you'll see a signature of Ramanuja, and he wrote his name Ramanusa, right? So But the point is, the word Ramanuja is what? It's a Sanskrit word. Rama, Anuja. Anuja means younger brother. Ja means to be born. Anuja means to be born before. Born after, excuse me. Born after, right? So Anuja means born after. So who is born after you is your younger sibling, right? In this case, younger brother. So Rama had a brother called Lakshmana who was born after him. So a name of Lakshmana is Ramanuja, right? This is Sanskrit. It's all Sanskrit. Rama, Anuja. Rama and Anuja put together is Ramanuja. Yeah, with the Sandhi. The two A's come together and make it long. So Ramanuja is a Sanskrit word. So why would I say a Sanskrit word and then the rest of the sentence Tamil? No, I say the whole word in Tamil. The Tamil name, the most common primary Tamil name of Ramanuja is Embaramanna. So that's why people say Embaramanna Tiruvadigalai Sharanam. Okay? But it's quite possible they could say, they could also say Ramanuja Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, or they could also say Ramanuja, and they could say the rest of it in Sanskrit, right? So you'll hear the most common things. The most common things is to just say it all in Tamil. Embaramanna Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Jir Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Pilelokacharya Tiruvadigalai Sharanam. Okay.
Very nice.
Okay.
And is the name of this Swami then Madhurakavi Dasa? The heard say that and Aryan Madhurakavi Dasa.
Yeah, he
So
says Madhurakavi Dasa. Maybe that's his initiated name. Maybe that's his name. Madhurakavi was the disciple of Namalwar. So Madhurakavi Dasa means the servant of Madhurakavi, servant of the Alwar, of Namalwar. So it could be a pen name, or it could, that he's just using on the internet, or it could be his actual name, Madhurakavi Dasa.
Thank you.
So now we come up to almost the end of 1 hour. I have a Vedic chanting class after this. Do we want to go on and make them wait for one more thing or not? I think the next section is actually 21 minutes long. So maybe we should finish here. If anybody's got in, let's just recap and look at we started at number 70 or 71. Let's see, was it 70? 71, I think. 71. Yeah. So there were three sections here. From Sutra 70 and 71 were about Paratantriya. Paratantriya means the complete independence of the Lord and the complete dependence of everyone else on the Lord and on nobody else. Then the attributes of the jiva were then mentioned in the next 4 sutras. That is 73 through 77. And it was explained, and they always do this, always give a definition, then explain the positive attributes of the definition, and then explain the Sheshatva, for instance, in 76, the Sheshatva Virodi and the touch Sheshatva Virodi. So Virodi means the obstacles, what obstructs our servitorship. What obstructs our servitorship to the Lord? That is ahankara, is thinking that I am independent. When I think I'm independent, that means I can't be a servant or I can't be a slave to the Lord, right? And what obstructs, what's another thing that obstructs that? If we think that we're a servant or a slave to somebody else. So somebody might think that they're a servant. They might have this idea of being a servant or a slave. But they think maybe they're a slave of Shiva, or they're a slave of Brahma, or they're a slave of Durga. They're not a slave of Sriman Narayana. Or they're a slave to their wife or their family or their parents or whatever it is, or their teachers in the school, But the real Sheshatva, real servitorship and real is to the Lord, to Sriman Narayana only. Okay, so that was in the next 4 sutras, coming up to 77, and now we have the last 2 that we did, 78 and 79, which are about self-identity, and explaining a little bit about this idea of Vaishnavas having the name Dasa or Dasi or Adiyen, showing that we're not related to any particular clan or village or family or society, right? Or culture even, right? But we are actually essentially the slaves of the Lord or the servants of the Lord, Adiyen, or Dasa or Dasi, like that. And how when we approach the Acharya to do formal property, to do formal samashrinam, that we attain an appropriate name that reminds us of this all the time. And even when we don't use that name, we're going to use the term Adiyen. Okay, so any other final thoughts before we finish today? Okay, so what should we say? We should say Embaramanna Tiruvadigalai Sharanam and Jir Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, Hilalokacharya Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, and Jir Tiruvadigalai Sharanam, right? We should just say those things. Of course, we should say the full Shatamurai for Hilalokacharya and Vanamamuni at the end. There, as I said in the first class about Kaniyans, there are these, which I put the video up on the internet already, hopefully. There are prayers to be chanted, respecting the teachers and the Guru Parampara at the beginning and at the end of the session. So if people want to join the chanting class, we can learn all those prayers and do it formally or properly. I'm not going to include those in the classes, but people are advised to learn those and to learn the meanings of those and to chant them before and after the class.